Hey, you beautiful people. Okay, here we are. Another Rebel Spirituality podcast. And this week I wanted to share something that came to me on a coaching call. I sort of saw a metaphor or a way of understanding something that seemed helpful, and it was helpful for the people on the call as well. So I thought I'd come and share it here. And I wanted to talk about clearing emotional blocks or emotional knots. Now, if any of you know the work of Michael Singer, you'll know that he does a really beautiful job of describing something that in yogic tradition are called samskaras. They're kind of these emotional knots, these blocks that we hold in our body. So imagine that when you're very young, something happens. Perhaps you learn at school that, or I can't, I'm going to avoid that because I said that thing in class and the teacher scolded me and there was a feeling and you didn't know how to feel it. So you pushed it down and it stayed there as like a knot. It stayed there as something that wasn't fully resolved. And so as you go through life, as you go into situations that remind you of that time, this is going to be completely unconscious, by the way. You won't even know. There's like this ripple effect and you fill with emotions or feelings like that's trying to burn off, but we don't know that. So we push it down and we feel dysregulated and maybe we avoid certain situations or we get away from them. And we don't realize that life is kind of trying to pull that stuff out of us because life is always bringing what we need in order to clear those emotional blocks so that we can clear the screen, so that we can just live with more joy and peace and happiness. But if we don't know that that process is safe and that we're psychologically safe to be able to breathe and feel and allow those things to release and open to them, then we'll keep them pushed down, right? It makes perfect sense. And I was describing this kind of process to someone on a call the other day, and what came to me was kind of like the image of, so after the Second World War, there were a lot of like undetonated bombs and charges left deep in the ocean, right? And so I'm sure, as many of you will know, sometimes these bombs are discovered and they have to go down and make sure that they're safe and that they're not going to go off, or they have to kind of like safely detonate them so that they don't cause damage to anybody, right, or hurt anyone. And it's a cool metaphor because it's almost a little bit like, imagine you're going through life, you're kind of going through life, and unbeknown to you, there are these kind of like emotional kind of things that are waiting to explode. They want to be healed. They want to move back towards wholeness, your wholeness, which is always there underneath, but these things are kind of just sat on top of it, right? And every now and again, something in life happens. Somebody says something. Somebody close to us says something, or someone we don't even know says something, and boom, one of these things goes off. Now, in that moment, we just don't realize that. We don't realize that that's clearing the way for the light of who we really are to shine more brightly beneath it. And it's a really beautiful thing. And so what we often try and do is try and solve this. Like, so recently I released a podcast about trying to solve feelings, trying to solve these problems of these things that are happening, when actually all those feelings want is to be felt, right? There's a deep intelligence in the wisdom that's going to clear that through. And then as that happens, there's clear water. It's much more plain sailing. We're able to kind of move through life, and these things come up less often. But even more important than that is not necessarily if those things are exploding or whether they're coming up, but it's our relationship to them. It's us knowing that whatever is playing out in the movie of our life, whatever that scene is like, even if it's very explosive, like, you're the screen, right? You're behind it. You're not the explosion itself. And knowing that is really profound because it allows you to sit with feelings that are often dysregulating, uncomfortable, hard to feel, but they're safe and they're beautiful. And of course, we can work with people to do this if we feel like, gosh, there's so much stuff in there, Sam, I can feel it. I want it to come out. I want to know how to come out. Like, there's so many things that we can do in terms of somatic work and working with coaches and spiritual guides and things like that to help us kind of move through those samskaras, those emotional knots. But it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing to do. And yeah, well, we find over time that we're a lot more clear. There's more space. The movie scenes sort of settle a bit, but I really mean it. More important than whether they do or not is the knowing that we're able to experience that stuff, that we can widen our aperture for life's experience, and we don't have to be afraid of our experience, that we are psychologically safe, that actually one of the kind of ironies of this is that when we don't know that and we hold those things in, when we bottle them down, bottle them up, we those things can become chronic. They can become chronic, because just like that young Sam, or who didn't know how to feel that, it's had that been fully processed at the time, it would find its way through. And what we find is, as we start to see that as well, as things happen to us in life, we're able to open to them more, so we don't kind of innocently create those knots, create those emotional knots as we move on. And that's a really beautiful thing. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to know that. And so, yeah, for so many of us, myself included, I spent so many years running away from any of that stuff, any of those feelings. And now I see that actually it's... So I heard someone say the other day, and it really struck me. This is really cool. Like, for so many of us, we're trying to feel better all the time. But actually, what we really need is to get better at feeling. Because as a byproduct of getting better at feeling, and that will come from knowing it's safe to do that, happiness and joy and clarity and all those states of being as who you really are, they appear as a byproduct, right? When we make them the goal, we end up becoming feeling junkies. We chase them. But in releasing that and feeling and just being with, the system delivers the goods. Yeah, it says, okay, here you are. And we can actually move into these experiences where, even if we're having a difficult emotional experience, there's a real sense of peace and contentment that we can touch and that we're connected to beneath that doesn't come and go. Because it's the feeling of you. It's the feeling of who you really are underneath all of that emotionality. Right, team. I hope you have the most incredible week. Please do come and sign up and watch me. Like, if you're listening to this, come find me on YouTube. If you're watching this, please do listen to the audios. Follow me on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, lots of exciting stuff in the pipeline for this rebel spirituality journey. I'm so stoked I get to do this. If you can't tell, this is absolutely my soul project, as I like to call it. And yeah, it fills me up. All right, team. I'll see you soon.